Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Candice Boulay, and I am the Director of Special Education here in Romoland School District.
Hello, everyone. My name is Heather Hiltz Fitzgerald, and I am the principal at Mesa View Elementary within the Romoland School District.
And if you guys don't mind, so we know where you all are coming from, if you want to introduce yourselves to us in the chat, we're going to kind of give you guys a little bit background of who we are and what our background is, and then we'd like to see where you guys are from and what your backgrounds are as well.
Yep. Okay, so let's get started. So a little bit about us. Again, my name's Heather. I have worked in the Romoland School District for over a decade now. I first started out as a multiple subject teacher, and I was in the gen ed setting, but then was able to engage in inclusive practices by collaborating with my fellow SAI teacher, and we engaged in co-teaching practices using a variety of co-teaching models. And so that is what drew my heart into everything special education and inclusion, and just ensuring that we're supporting all students and their diverse needs. Later on, I did become an ed tech TOSA within the district, which I think was also really valuable for me to look into accessibility for our students and making sure that our students are able to be creative, express themselves through technology. And then COVID hit, and I actually then transitioned directly into being an assistant principal, which was at the same school that I had my teaching career at. And then a few years later, I had the opportunity to become the principal at that school. And now I'm at Mesa View Elementary, being able to share the great inclusive practices taking place here at our school site. And I look forward to just connecting with you all today and sharing a little bit more about our school and our district.
Thank you, Heather. So as I said, my name is Candice. I have a little bit of a different background, and I think that's why it's so great working with Heather, because we have different backgrounds and we can kind of feed off of each other and build on each other's strengths. So I did start my career back in a recession. So I got my general ed multiple subject teaching credential. And then I was subbing and fell in love with special ed populations, specifically emotional disabilities. And so I did go back to school to earn my special ed credentials for mild mod and mod severe. After that, I did become a high school teacher for students with emotional disabilities in a local high school, actually our feeder district, just down the street. And then after that, I did become an elementary AP. So I got to use my elementary credential again in that field. And then after that, I was promoted to high school AP within the same district. And then after my time as a high school AP, I was afforded the opportunity to come over to Romoland as the coordinator of special education. I did that for almost 5 years. And then just this September, I was afforded the opportunity to step into the role of director of special education. So that is where I am today with Romoland. So this is my 6th school year with Romoland. Okay. Thank you, Thomas. You're a good driver.
Yes. You read our mind.
So just to give you guys an idea of context, so you can maybe make some connections with where you guys are located and the size of your district and the size of your school. I'm going to talk about what Romoland looks like as far as size, and then Heather's going to talk about Mesa View specifically. So you can see here that Romoland, we're just under 5,000 students. We are a growing district. We grow about 4% every year. So definitely growing. We currently have 803 students that we service that are on an IEP. We have about 60 plus pending assessments at any given time. So we'll probably end the year with about 900 students that we're servicing with IEPs. Our mild mod support needs students, about 380. Extensive support needs, 144 students. And then we have 279 students on IEPs for speech only. General education teachers, we have 187 teachers. Again, we're TK through 8th grade. I think I failed to mention that. We do also service preschool. So preschool through 8th grade. And then our feeder school is right down the street, feeder district, high school district. So we have 187 teachers between our TK through 8th grade. And then we have 30 special education teachers across our schools, 138 instructional aides. We love our instructional aides. Mm-hmm. We have 2 amazing behavior specialists, board certified behavior analysts. We have 5 school psychologists. I meant to update that. We had 4. We just hired our 5th one, so we're very excited to add to our team. So with a growing district, we are always hiring new staff. We have 2 occupational therapists that service our district, 2 occupational therapist assistants, 12 speech therapists, 2 SLPAs, 1.5 mental health therapists, and 8 counselors. We just grew in our counselor department. So we're definitely a growing district, which also means we're growing in staffing. So we're always hiring.
Always hiring. Check us out on EdJoin.
Yeah.
Love to have you part of the team. So, with that, Mesa View Elementary is one of our largest schools in the district. Again, we only have a few elementaries and one middle school, but we are building a brand new TK through 8th grade school that'll be opening up this next school year. But we're a total of 925 students here at Mesa View Elementary, and 144 of those students have IEPs. We are very lucky to have 2 different programs for special education here at Mesa View Elementary. So we have our SAI model, which serves our mild to moderate severe, student needs. There's about, I can't even see that, 52 students. And then we also have exceptional student needs with 60 students in that program, which is our RISE program. And we'll get into a little bit more information about what that is. Speech only, we have 32 students. So a total of 37 educators on campus, 7 of those being special education teachers. We have a lot of instructional aides, more instructional aides that I've ever had before at a site, but they are, again, the heart of our school, and they just continue to support all of our students and our staff. So there's 39 of those individuals on campus. We have one school psychologist, and how she does all of the assessments, and she's a rock star. Her name's Itzel, so we are so lucky to have her here at Mesa View. We do share some speech therapists along with the district, but we do have 2 core speech therapists that are housed here at our site, as well as a SLPA, and we have 1 counselor.
What?
And one of the great things that we really appreciate is the enrichment opportunities that all of our students are able to receive. So we have music, art, PE, library, and field trips, and all of our students, no matter if they have an IEP or not, are part of those experiences. So you can head on over to our next
slide.
Yes.
So just to kind of give you a background of our story of inclusion, and I think this is important for people that are, everyone's in their own space in their journey. And just remembering that it's not something that happens overnight. So I've been with Romoland, like I said, this is my 6th year, and this was already in progress when I started. And I think what's been important is when you do have transition with staffing is like having that shared vision, and that vision continues, and you're still making progress and momentum even after maybe somebody before leaves. And so really this journey towards inclusion started with Romoland back in 2016. Back in 2016, Romoland only offered pull-out services through the traditional RSP and mild mod SDC settings. Students did not receive any services in the general education setting. So that was the model at that time. Another thing to keep in mind is students were bused from their homes to Mesa View, actually here at Mesa View, if they services in the mild mod SDC setting.
I'll let everybody know.
So in 2018, we were able to, as Heather mentioned, we have a program we call the RISE program, Romoland Intensive Special Education. So prior to 2018, students that needed those extensive support needs we contracted with the Riverside County Office of Ed. And so in 2018, we had the opportunity to bring those students back to our district. We had 7 classrooms at Romoland Elementary School. It was a great time in Romoland to have those students come and be at their home district. And then in 2022, we were able to expand and open up some of those classrooms here at Mesa View. And so now we had more students able to attend their home school, not just their home district, but their home school. And so we now have 5 classes here at Mesa View and 6 classes at Romoland Elementary School. And then we have 2 classes at the middle school. So we'll talk more about what that program looks like. And then just, currently we're now in year 2025, which is crazy. And we're just constantly looking at ways to continuously improve and refine our practices. It's sometimes hard for us to be asked to present, or we are a SIP demonstration site, visit site. So people come and see what we're doing, and sometimes we feel like, well, we're not where we love what we're doing, but we still have so much more to grow, so much more to do, so much more to improve on. But we've learned through the process how much we love collaborating with other districts, hearing about their journey, hearing about where they are, We get ideas from them,
Yes.
they get ideas from us. And so, we've never arrived, right? We're never done learning, we're never done growing. And so that's where we are right now in Romoland in the year 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Thomas.
And now we'll go ahead and break down those two different programs as we were speaking about before.
Mm-hmm.
So for our RISE classroom, here at Mesa View Elementary, we do have 5 RISE classrooms. Again, these are students with extensive support needs, and they're smaller class sizes. Student ratio to adult support, so that allows for us to give them more personalized learning approaches. And then there's also the opportunity for mainstreaming as well. So the great thing about Mesa View is that there is collaboration amongst general education and our special education teachers taking place day to day, because they are housed in the same vicinity. They can have those collaborative conversations in the moment. And then our gen ed teachers know the value of being able to open up their classrooms to all students so that they have access to grade level content just like their grade level peers. And then we also really strive on trying to have services provided within the inclusive environment. So a lot of times our speech therapists, our occupational therapists will go directly into the classrooms to support the students so that they're getting that natural intervention in real time within their classroom. We also have what we call the Learning Center. So, our specialized academic instruction service delivery. And so, those are students with mild to moderate needs. And so, our students then are rostered to a gen ed classroom. And then their case carrier does support in a variety of ways, whether that is for like pull out minutes for, specific goals that they're working on, or specific academic tasks that they need support with based upon accommodations. But then there's also push-in services too that happen directly in the classroom, and that's where we've been able to see some of our teachers, particularly one set of teachers that is able to do co-teaching, and they're actually presenting coming up at the next presentation on the 5th. So you would love to come and hear about their story too. But again, it's very much a collaborative space for all of our teachers, our educators, our instructional aides, to ensure that all of our students are just progressing and growing each and every day.
And then just one thing I wanted to add when it comes to our programs is just something to keep in mind is the words that we use is really matters. And so when we're talking about students, we really do believe in Romoland, and we have for a long time, that all students are general education students. They're general education students that receive services, or they're students with a disability, but they're all general education students. And we talk about some students might receive services in the RISE program. Some students might receive services in the Learning Center. Some students might receive services in the general education classroom. Some students might receive services in the speech room. So it's really what the language that we're using, which will help change mindset, which we're going to talk about later. But one thing I hope that you guys take from today is this SAI is a service, not a place. So when we think about students with disabilities, a lot of times we think about a place, like, well, they need to go over there. They need to be in that setting to get their services, or they're not going to make progress. They need to be over there. So think about SAI, specialized academic instruction, whether they're in the RISE program receiving those services or the Learning Center. SAI is a service, not a place. And the one thing too about, we have students that receive services in the RISE program. They also receive services in the Learning Center, and they also receive services in the general education setting. So they can receive SAI support in all 3 settings. So it's not a place for them. The RISE program is not a place where they're in the RISE program. They can only receive services in that RISE classroom. So that's something to keep in mind. The SAI is a service, not a place.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're going to kind of get into how do we make this work. And so obviously I've said the word collaboration over and over, but it is truly a collaborative process. I appreciate the collaboration and the relationship that I've developed with Candace here, because I think that ultimately, as a site leader, is so important. Building that relationship and trust amongst site administration to district leadership is super important, because then we can be open and honest about the types of needs that we will need here at the site. And then obviously I can tap into her expertise to guide me in certain situations, or, just give me guidance as to what type of resources I would have available for my particular students or my staff. So in order for us to do that, there has to be ongoing communication, again, that trusting relationship. And then also letting us as a site also voice like what makes us different from the other sites. And she's done a really great job of then, providing support based upon the needs or the uniqueness of each site. So I do appreciate that and having that relationship with her and our other district leadership. And then, two minds are better than one, so we can come together. I bring her a certain situation and then we can create some type of a solution. And the other thing that's really important too then to continue to foster that relationship and collaboration is ensuring that you're having those meetings. So we as a school site meet with our district administration, our special education director. We meet with her on a monthly basis, and that includes our assistant principal as well as our school psych. And that is a really great opportunity for us to, talk about celebrations, look at student needs, caseloads, staffing, and that happens on a monthly basis to ensure that we are making sure that everyone has what they need. The other thing that we've added on this year at Mesa View is having our SPED team. So all of our special education teachers, some of our our speech therapists, our OT, all SPED staff, they get to come in and have a meeting with us about once a month. And it is optional for our district leadership to attend, but this has also been very valuable. And we can go down, talk about their celebrations, review caseloads, and just be aware if there's anything that we need to be prepared for upcoming meetings or communication with families and so forth. So again, it is vital that you have consistent meetings to make sure that the communication is being shared and we're all on the same page.
And one thing I noticed when I first joined the district too is a lot of times when we have our meetings and they're sometimes pretty siloed. So a admin might have a meeting with their mild mod case carriers and then have a separate meeting with their mod severe case carriers. And so one thing that Mesa View is doing, which is really helpful with that collaboration, is having a whole SPED team meeting. It's every SPED staff in the school. I get invited. I tend to probably every other one, and then they can talk about concerns they're having. It could be technical things with SACE. It could be this is a time to talk about students. I have a student in my class that's going to be transitioning to the learning center or transitioning to a gen ed teacher's classroom. Is that creates that opportunity and creates that collective efficacy when you have everybody together having those conversations about what's best for kids and having those inclusive conversations with every SPED staff in the room. And we'll talk more about PLCs later. All right. So this is where the fun begins. We always talk about these big picture ideas, and then it comes, okay, now how do we do it? And so I want to say a couple years ago, when what's really great about mine and Heather's working relationship is because she was an assistant principal in the district when I was a coordinator, we were meeting monthly in those roles. And then when Heather was promoted to principal, instead of her handing special ed duties off to her assistant principal, she continued with that role of overseeing special education. And I continued to meet with her as a principal. So we already had that foundation when she became a principal. And that was 6 school years ago. So this is 6 years of relationship going that you see here. And so when we talked about how do we know, obviously when we write IEPs, the case carriers are recommending services in an IEP. So how do we know we have the right support for students based on their IEP minutes to make sure that we're meeting their SAI minutes in the general education setting and in the learning center? And so what we had to do was, and there's a really good report that you can run in SACE, and it will tell you what what every service a student has. And we can look at the service location, 5, if it's in the general education setting, if it's in a separate setting. And then once you're able to see every student you have at your school site and all their service minutes that need to be met, you want to create a spreadsheet. Okay. So we love spreadsheets here in Romoland. And I don't know if you can see on the screen, I'm going to talk you through this. The first column is blacked out, but that is a list of every single teacher that has a student with an IEP that receives special education services. And then you can see the grade level, and then you can see the number of students in that teacher's classroom. We have lists of any students that are pending assessments, and then what are their total. They might have 3 students in the classroom, but one student receives 210 minutes. So that's the max number of students required, prescribed. And so that's the minutes that we're going to need to meet in that classroom. So we were able to create in one spot all the minutes that need to be met. And then we look at our staffing. So if you look to the far right, you see our staff. So at the time that we created this spreadsheet, You have, and it's really tiny, but we
Mhm.
basically, at the time, I think we did this, we have the 2 special education teachers, and then each teacher at the time had 2 instructional aides. Since this, we've grown, we have a lot more instructional aides, at the school site, and so that's how we were able to figure out, what teachers are needing and how to make the minutes work and how to create that master schedule
Mhm. Yep.
when it comes to, supporting students' needs, in the classroom.
And so that is kind of like the vision of how we as district and site leadership can ensure that we have appropriate staffing,
Mhm.
but then also it can't be just top down. So the other step of creating that master schedule is to also include all
Mhm.
educational partners. So we'll go into that at the next slide. So with that, when working at my previous school site and now the work that I am now transitioning over here at Mesa View Elementary is that it is ultimately it is a necessity for you to come together with your teachers, not only your SAI teachers or siloed teachers, but both of those individual groups, SAI
In
and general
general.
education teachers, to have a conversation about what does our student population look like. So we do have open and intentional discussions about what our caseloads look like. We look at the students' needs, the student services, and we just share that with everyone. From there, we're able to then talk about what our master schedule would look like on a daily and a weekly basis so that we can provide appropriate push in and or pull out services. And in that conversation, I did really tap into particular teachers who are, really like the rock star teachers when it comes to inclusion. And so, really looking at and identifying those teachers as being individuals who would do well with co teaching practices or supporting inclusive practices, and then providing them opportunities within the year to either have days where they can collaborate with their SAI teachers or SPED teachers, or even be sent to specific professional development training so that they can continue to refine the craft of inclusive practices. Um, but again, we really look at the actual service minutes to then build out what possibly a classroom roster would look like,
Mhm.
to then translate that into what the classroom day and or week is going to look like as well. So you can head on over to the next one. Okay, so with that, we've given you a lot of information, but feel free to just stop and reflect, take your time right now, think about these things. You can either come off of your mic if that's allowed, I think maybe, and or you can go ahead and put it in the chat, what you're reflecting on with these particular questions. So first one is, how does your master schedule reflect instructional priorities and inclusive practices? Who is currently contributing to the creation of your master schedule? And how do you gather staff input and ensure buy-in?
Feel free to jump in the chat if you want to engage in that conversation. I'll be monitoring it as well.
And then, not to do a commercial, but Vanessa and Ashling are co-teachers here at Mesa View for 5th grade. They're going to talk about what the 5th grade master schedule looks like and how they, the whole, even though there's only the one teacher co-teaching, she's not the only one that has students with IEPs. And so the whole 5th grade team has a collective master schedule that they're all doing this. They're all teaching math at the same time. They're all teaching language arts at the same time. When the students are in the learning center doing their intensive intervention, the teachers have a collective agreement that they're not going to teach anything new while those students are receiving their special education supports in the learning center. So you'll get to hear more about that if you join us next week.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and let you guys reflect. Oh, we have 4 elementary
We have 4
schools.
elementary
The
schools
master
also.
schedules will need to be consistent across the district.
Mhm.
Yes. And I can talk about that as we move on, about the planning component,
Mhm.
because again, it doesn't happen overnight and you do have to have a plan ahead of time. And so we can talk about what that looks like.
I saw something else. Oh, no. The mouse is being The collective agreements.
Yeah. Okay.
So someone in the chat just said we communicate through PLC meetings.
Yes.
We'll talk about
Yes.
that too.
Absolutely. Okay. So like I said, you have to plan ahead. So discussing the master schedule within PLCs and or at school-wide professional development, if your admin does leave those, that needs to take place before you guys go away for the summer. So my plan in the next few months, and I've done this practice over the past couple years, is to look at, again, looking at our student population with service minutes and letting teachers know for the next school year who potentially could be in their classes and looking at those minutes so that we are rostering appropriately so that we can provide them the appropriate support. And then with that, the teachers collaborate on creating cohesive schedules on a weekly basis for their grade level. So that way, like she was stating before, fifth grade, they all teach math at the same time. They all teach English language arts at the same time. And then they also have the same time for small group instruction, which is a great way that we can utilize push and support. But again, that has to happen before you leave during the summer because you don't want to build it right when you get back. You want to roll it out right away. And again, it says on there, review the student needs, service minutes. And then administration preparation. So as an admin, creating a master schedule template is going to be very helpful and make the work go a lot quicker. So within that, building out the schedule, ensuring that lunches, recesses, PE, and other extracurricular activities are embedded in there so that the teachers can then collaboratively work around to create that really robust schedule. And then, like we said, you got to use Google Sheets. Google Sheets is going to be a game changer, or some type of a collaborative sheet that you use if you're like a Microsoft district. But that way, everyone can see things in real time and you can work on building it together. And then those master schedules need to be shared with admin, which then we can then share with our SAI teachers and have those collaborative conversations as to when they're building out their schedule for either the Learning Center, pull-out time, or the push and support with either themselves or their instructional aides. It's also like really great to share what people have done in the past with their master schedules with your grade level teams or with your individual teachers so that they can obviously not go in this blindly, and then do this at either a PLC or a professional development opportunity. So everyone's working at the same time in the same room so that they can share ideas and then make sure that things are aligning appropriately. And actually on that slide right there is a great example of master scheduling. We have our gen ed teacher working with a small group, and then we also have an instructional aide working with another group at the same time. But that's because of master scheduling, because they wouldn't have been able to make that work if they didn't have it in a schedule.
And I did notice a comment about really goes back to what I was talking about. The language we use is really important. So your students, my students versus our students. And so, everybody is in their own place in their journey. And, if you're really at the mindset stage as a leader, you have a lot of power in the words that you're using. So, an example I give too is, because we do have a program called the RISE program, a lot of times you'll hear, oh, that's a RISE student, or those are the RISE students. And so as leaders, we're trying to change that language of they're a student in the RISE program or a student that receives services in the RISE program. So they're not labeled as, oh, that's a RISE student. So we have to be really mindful. So we have to be able to catch ourselves and also hold each other accountable with the language that we're using and the words that we're using, because our words really do matter. And the more the leaders are able to shape that language and shape that mindset, it'll help support your sites in being ready to do this work. Because I know, like I said, everyone's in a different spot when it comes to their inclusive journey. And we're here to support you. And we appreciate you being here.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Thomas.
Okay, so this is an example of a master schedule that could be utilized. This is what we used over the past couple of years at my previous site. And so it really does break down the week for each grade level and having those consistencies amongst their subject areas, as well as interventions, again, for that push and support. And so we can provide examples or templates of these at a later date for you guys so you can mess around with them and see if they work. But again, it it really does come down to intentional usage of time, intentional usage of our humans, right? Our experts, which include both our teachers and our instructional aides. And so that is one example. And then you can go to the next slide, which could be another example, which is more of not really my type of brain. Like I don't really see schedules like this, is more like Candace style. But again, this is a great opportunity to see when there is available time for that pull out or push in support as well. So how do we keep up the momentum? So ensuring that there's collaboration and supports in place. So we've kind of touched upon PLCs. We here in the Romaland School District are fortunate enough to have 2 PLCs for our grade levels each week. And one of those is admin led. And so in that can give us the opportunity to check in to make sure our schedules are working, we're making progress with our students. We do have shared oversight of just student progress as a school. So this example here of that Google Sheet, all teachers in all grade levels are able to see the progression of our students based upon their iReady diagnostic, and so that we're all holding each other accountable for each individual child's progress. We again have Admin Wednesdays, dedicated time for teaching teams to look at data, make commitments of their instructional practices. And that includes not only our gen ed teachers, but our SPED teachers as well. So they're all in the room together making these decisions. Again, and then this is a great opportunity for you to plan the master schedule before you go on summer break to make sure it's ready to roll out.
This is mine.
Yep.
And so one thing we did want to talk about too is, like I mentioned earlier, this was, this has been years in the making. This has been a lot of work at the school sites. As a district leader, I will tell people, and if you've been in any of our SIP visits, you'll have heard me say this before, but as a district leader, sometimes my job as a support is just to not be a barrier, not to be in the way of the work and the momentum that's happening at the school sites. And being in Romoland for 6 years, I've gotten to see the progress at all the different elementary schools. We have been fortunate that a lot of our teachers or assistant principals have promoted within the district, so they're already familiar with Romoland. And so my role is to support. And so I know I've been kind of trying to keep up with some of the comments in the chat. And I think one thing that we hear all the time is mindset, right? Culture and mindset. If you have to work on, sometimes you just have to start with your culture and mindset. And once we talk about buy-in, right? Culture mindset relates to getting that buy-in. As a leader, it's really important that you're building relationships, that you're listening to people, you're building trust, because change is scary. And it doesn't always mean that they don't care about kids if they are hesitant to inclusion. It's just that change is scary and what they're used to doing is comfortable for them. And so, culture and mindset, you have to really reflect on your personal mindset. And I have to check myself sometimes too. And so that's where the accountability comes in with like-minded leaders. And so culture mindset is very important. And I can see, looking at the comments in the chats, that, we all have work to do with our culture and mindset. And so like I said, building relationships is key to doing this work, especially when you're trying to create a big change in inclusive practices or shifting. Like Heather has been saying, that collaboration is so important, and finding ways to collaborate. Some districts do have that PLC built into their schedule. You might have teacher release time. You might have to provide them subs to collaborate. We provide release time with subs to collaborate. We provide extra duty for teachers that would like to collaborate outside of their contract time. So it's kind of like addressing barriers, because being able to collaborate is a barrier. Time is a barrier. So how do we break down that barrier? How do we support as leaders in breaking down those barriers for our teachers, especially the teachers that are willing, the ones that are already on board. They're already on the bus, they're ready to go. And then they just need the admin to help them, get in the driver's seat and drive the bus. And sometimes it comes to really, even with the district, as a district leader, I can set aside funds, but the sites do it also. The principals through their SIPSA set aside funds to support collaboration, to support inclusion. So that's really important when it comes to collaboration. And then the one thing I want you guys to leave with is the importance of the principal as a leader. You know, I was an assistant principal overseeing a special ed department at my high school. But you know, through my time and experience, and even visiting other schools, one thing that we all see as a common theme is the principal leading the work with inclusion is key. If your principal is not going to lead the work, you're not going to make the progress that you need. So it's really important, if you're here and you're a principal, that the principal really is, doesn't mean you're the one sitting in all the IEP meetings, although I have a couple principals that they are the main admin in IEP meetings, but you're leading the inclusion for the school, because inclusion isn't just about special ed. It's a school wide, it's all students. And so the principal has to be the one leading that work. And so I just wanted to make sure that was shared, because it just how important that is as the principal. Leading the work of inclusion it has to be the principal leading it.
And with that, are there any questions?
Woohoo!
It was well said. Very good.